Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Barry Aftercare, the podcast where I'm coming to you with good news today. After last week's kind of painful episode, we're talking about skills to overcome what we talked about last week. So today we're going to focus on overcoming any kind of self-defeating attitude, any kind of victim mentality, and taking charge of your life. So tools for overcoming all the things that can set you back, self sabotage, negative self thinking, that fall into that bigger umbrella of being a victim. So we can move toward your goals of living healthier at a healthy weight for your body and doing the things you want to do in your life. That's what this is all about. So today, specifically, we're going to be talking about resiliency and self-efficacy, which is one of my favorite topics. We've talked about that before, but we're going to talk about it in a little different light today because, as I said, we're going to talk about overcoming these negative things that get in the way that often, as in almost always, end up with regain. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get started. All right, so a lot of regain following whatever kind of weight loss, whether it's a traditional diet, whether it's a fad diet, a medically supervised, whether it's a shot, a medication, or bariatric surgery. So much of it, obviously, is people are going to say it's the food. The food is the problem, but it's related to self-defeating attitudes because so often people turn to food because they're engaged in this negative self-talk, this negative attitude about why bother? Why do I even try? This is too hard. I never succeeded in the past. I'm just going to fail again. So there's all these self-defeating attitudes. I don't want to work out. I don't want to eat this way all the time. I'm sick of this. Why does everybody else get to eat what they want and keep a good weight? That kind of thinking. Self-defeating. It's not going to help you in any kind of way. So self-defeating attitude, a leads to self-defeating behaviors. We know this. We've talked many, many times about how thinking leads to feeling and thinking and feeling lead to behavior. So if we're having this, if we're dissing on ourselves or complaining about what it takes to keep the weight off, it's kind of self-defeating and eventually is going to lead to those self-sabotaging behaviors. Same thing with a victim mentality. It's one of the things that lead to self-defeating behaviors and self-sabotage, same kind of thing, self-defeating, self-sabotaging. You're getting yourself back into the negative habits, and that's always going to lead to regain. That's what we're working to avoid. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about ways that you can overcome the self-defeating behavior. And you know what self-defeating behavior is, but I'm just going to go over a little bit of an overview. And this is from an article which will definitely put in the link to the show notes. It's called 9 Signs You Are Self-Sabotaging from Dr. Kim, whoever that is, at Red Mountain Weight Loss. She says, all right, self-sabotaging. And this is in relation to weight specifically. You're a negative thinker. Doesn't it all kind of boil down to negative thinking? In a lot of regards, it does. That stinking thinking getting in your way, putting yourself at a disadvantage for following through with healthy behaviors. So, for example, you may have lost 10, 3, 20, 70 pounds, whatever. And the negative thinking comes in when you say, but I still have X amount of weight to lose. So instead of going, wow, I'm so grateful that I am 3 or 5 or 20 or 70 pounds down and I feel so much better and I'm able to do these things, the negative thinking is, but, and then you've shot yourself in the foot. All right, another example of self-sabotaging with regard to weight, we've done episodes on this, that fear of failure. That negative, it's a negative thinking. I'm going to fail. What if I fail? What if this happened? What if? That fear of something going wrong, which is going to lead you right into that self-sabotaging behavior. So we want to focus on, I choose health, I choose health, I choose health. We've been over that. Or being a closet eater. Everybody thinks, why are they gaining weight? They're doing so well. Well, maybe you have fallen back into a behavior or taken up another negative behavior, which is eating in secret. Definitely a self-sabotaging behavior. Now, this goes hand in hand with being a negative thinker, but it's negative self-talk. So talking badly about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough in general. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I don't measure up. I don't fit in. So we've got negative thinking in general, like I've lost all this weight, and then we've got negative self-talk. So being a negative thinker about yourself and dissing yourself leads to self-sabotaging behavior. The next one she notes is the saint or sinner mentality. And you may recognize this more as saying, I've got to do it perfectly. It's that all or nothing perfectionistic thinking and behavior. So if I don't do it perfectly, that means I've failed. So I might as well give it up, start over again tomorrow, or start over again on Monday if you kind of blew it. But that perfectionism, saint or sinner. I'm either a saint, oh, I do it perfectly, I exercise all the time, or I'm a sinner. That's definitely a self-sabotaging kind of mindset. Emotional eating is self-sabotaging. Again, we've done plenty of episodes on emotional eating and how to overcome emotional eating. So that is a self-sabotaging behavior that we have to learn to overcome. Focusing on the past, that doom and gloom, again, leading to self-defeating behavior. And, I've never been able to lose weight and keep it off. So why do I think I'm going to be able to do it this time? So it's that, oh my God. Yes, the past is a good predictor of future behavior, but there are things we can do, which we're going to talk about in this episode, to intervene so we don't fall into these self-sabotaging behaviors that I'm listing here. Another one she calls the chicken little syndrome. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Oh my gosh, I've got so much weight to lose. I'm never going to be able to do it. Or, oh, I've gained back 3 pounds. It's just too much. So it's kind of like catastrophizing. If you've lost 3 pounds before, you can lose 3 pounds again. Yes, you may have a long, long way to go, but you're only going to get it off a little at a time. So let's be realistic about it and not give up turning to self-sabotaging behavior because you've made a huge deal out of this and made it a huge emotional issue as opposed to a logical. Yes, I have a lot of weight to lose. Yes, it's going to take some time. These are the things that are going to have to happen. And then the last one that Dr. Kim mentions as a self-sabotaging behavior is the excuse factory. Always making an excuse. It's too hard. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I don't have time. There's people are in my way. It's my birthday. I must have cake. My aunt made it, so I have to eat it. Oh, I just have a slow metabolism. What am I supposed to do? I'll just never lose this weight. So excuses, excuses, excuses. And these self-defeating behaviors of returning to the old habits that you're very familiar with stem from self-defeating thoughts. So if you're not prepared to work on these self-defeating thoughts, these negative thoughts, these self-sabotaging thoughts for the rest of your life, you're going to be in trouble. And when I say work, I mean work. You already know how easy it is to slip into negative thinking. Something that's been a pattern for a long time is a habit, something we engage in without really thinking about it too much is a habit. So changing from negative thinking to less negative thinking, God forbid, positive thinking, is like changing a habit because it is changing a habit. It's not like changing habits. So we've got this self-defeating behavior going to lead to weight regain, all related to negative thinking. Now, last week we talked about what a victim mentality is. It's where somebody's, constantly viewing themselves as, Oh my gosh, I'm treated so unfairly. If my boss would just, if my kids would just, if people would just behave the way I want them to and act the way I want them to, I'm constantly wronged by everything's working against me, other people, the weather, my boss, whatever it happens to be. Even though objectively the evidence might suggest otherwise. And this victim mentality, as we talked about, and I'm not going to elaborate too much today, there's a lot of blaming going on. It's like, I don't want to take any personal responsibility. I'm going to say what you're doing wrong. I'm not going to look at what's my part in this. I'm going to maintain this helplessness. What am I supposed to do? There's nothing I can possibly do. And then, you know, it's difficult for people who have this victim mentality to find and accept responsibility for their own behavior. And as I mentioned, it's really hard. It's really hard. It's hard to have compassion when somebody seems to be complaining and whining all the time. But we got to remember that this person deserves compassion. We don't have to stick around and coddle these people or the person you're involved with who is doing this, but we have to be kind. We have to be fair and firm. And it can be really, really difficult because kind of you just want to say, well, wah, effing wah. What are you going to do about it? And that sometimes is my approach. And sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, it can be very, very frustrating. So if you're dealing with somebody who is putting this out, what I encourage you to do is say, listen, I know this is tough. I know you're hurting. I am not going to be party to your pity party. I'm not going to sit and join in your pity party. I'm going to say, is there any way that I can possibly help you? And if so, what is it? And then I'm going to remind you that I can't do this for you. Fair and firm. All right. Here's what's so important about a self-defeating attitude, the negative thoughts, the victim mentality, the self-sabotaging behavior that leads to regain. That is the danger, right? It leads to old habits. And I'm not going to go into this too much in today's episode, but some people are more comfortable there. We're more comfortable in the old habits because it's more familiar. We don't have to take as much responsibility. We can kind of lay back and go, oh, I'm glad that's over. It was just too much work. So there is some kind of unhealthy freedom in sticking with negative old behaviors. They are familiar, they are comfortable. You know where life is and where you're at in that zone. But to make changes, to stay on course with following through with the gotta do's, you have to get outside that comfort zone. So it takes a huge willingness and constant effort to change this thinking. Because really, at the core of it all is this negative thinking. I know I talk about it a lot, but I cannot stress to you the absolute essential nature of working on changing your thinking to change your life. We've been focusing a lot on that in the Bariatric Care online community program lately. A lot of really great memes, a lot of really great people sharing their own experiences in the daily takes and encouraging people really. Let's talk about how you're thinking and how that thinking leads to unhealthy behaviors. I've been sending a lot of patients lately some cognitive behavioral worksheets to question their thinking. This is a learned skill. Questioning your thinking and challenging that thinking is something that you can learn, and it's absolutely critical. So maybe next week I'll go over some of those cognitive behavioral. How do I challenge my negative thinking? In fact, I think I will. So that might be next week's podcast episode. But today we're going to talk about two really important skills that will help you combat these negative thoughts, but also will translate into every single area of your life. Because these skills, all of the skills that you learn in bariatric care that are helping you get away from the negative thinking, that are helping you stick with motivation, that are helping you increase your belief and your confidence and your self-talk. All of these things can be applied in every area of your life. And that's why I like to say this goes beyond bariatrics. We specifically apply the information in this podcast to your weight loss efforts, your weight loss journey, your recovery from the disease of obesity. But every single one of these is a transferable skill. So the two skills we're going to talk about today are resiliency and self-efficacy. And you've probably noticed in your life that some people seem to be more resilient than other people. In other words, they bounce back more quickly and seemingly with less effort than other people. So, you know that song, I get knocked down, but I get up again? The people who are able to get up again more quickly are demonstrating resiliency. Life is going to knock us down in a lot of different ways. All right, so resiliency is that ability to get back up, to not be bowled over by the adversities that life throws at us. And we are all going to experience adversity. I was talking to a lady today who, by the way, this is an interesting story, has been real down in the dumps for a while. And I got real fair and firm because everything was unfair and everything was knocking her down. And it was woe was me. And there was a big old pity party. Then she got some happy news that she liked and things changed. And so she's been processing her attitude throughout that difficult period. But again, started the discussion with, oh my gosh, life just keeps coming at me and I just can't get a break. And it's the washer and the dryer and it's the dishwasher and the battery in the car went dead and all this thing. I'm like, whoa, yes, those are pains in the rear, without a doubt. And it does seem to be coming a lot at one time. And yet, let's put those thoughts into perspective because there are a whole lot of people out there in the world who would love to be having your problems. So life is going to knock us on our butts, whether it's the washer and the dryer, the battery in the car, the people having a huge food fest at the office, the family reunion, the job getting laid off, whatever it happens to be, life is going to knock us down. But the ability to get back up when adversities strike us is what resiliency is. So rather than letting the difficulties, these events, these failures, maybe you regained a few pounds, maybe you went off the rails with your food one day. And so rather than letting these failures or getting fallen off the rails overcome you and drain your resolve, like, oh, I give up. Why bother? And falling into that self-sabotaging behavior and that negative mindset, people with resiliency, which by the way, you can learn to build, which we're going to talk about today. That's the good news here. You can increase and develop your resiliency so that when you lose your job, you don't have to emotionally eat. When your husband or your wife or your kids or your mom or your dad or your sister or your best friend is all ticked off at you, you don't have to run to the fast food place. You can use your skills of resiliency to say, okay, this sucks, but I'm going to deal with it in the present and not let it drag me down. So rather than letting these things get the best of you, people who are highly resilient find a way to pivot. They change their course of action. They figure out how to heal emotionally. They work through their sadness or their anger or their frustration or their grief and continue to move toward your goals. So that's the important element here. It's continuing to move toward your goals rather than giving up when something unpleasant happens, and whether that something unpleasant is outside of you or you've done something to set yourself back. Even if you engage in some sort of self-sabotaging behavior, you can use your resiliency. You can use these skills to bounce back up and say, I'm not giving up. I'm moving on toward my goals. This was one situation. Onward and forward. Now, the thing is, building resiliency, this ability to bounce back, requires what's called psychological flexibility. And this is information by different researchers. And again, I will post these articles in the show notes if you want to read more about this. But psychological flexibility is being able to adapt to stress. So the boss calls you in and chews your butt, or the car, you run out of gas, or the car just, the tire goes flat, or it starts raining and you have an outdoor wedding planned, whatever it happens to be. Psychological flexibility says, okay, all right, what is plan B? What are we going to do next? Rather than give in, give up, throw away all of our goals and disintegrate under this kind of pressure. So we have to develop this attitude that I have to have a plan B. And when things go wrong, which they will do, even in your weight loss journey, there are going to be times you slip up. There are going to be times you cave. There are going to be times you give in to food. But it's this resiliency to say, it's not going to stop me from moving toward my goals. Come hell or high water, right? Resiliency, so it requires this psychological flexibility. I have to be able to say, okay, it's water under the bridge, move on. It's like they say in baseball, time for that next pitch. That play's over, move on, look toward the next one. Resiliency often, and here's where a lot of people struggle, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, it requires compassion for yourself. And that is a tough thing. Remember how we talked about negative self-talk as a self-sabotaging behavior? Well, if you're all engaged in negative self-talk, you're not going to have a whole lot of compassion for yourself. So let's say you do go off the rails and you just eat everything you can find for a day or a couple of days or maybe even a week. And maybe you gain back 10 pounds or whatever it is. Rather than throwing in the towel and say, why bother? Let's build this resiliency and say, okay, time to get back on the horse, time to re-engage, time to keep moving toward my goals, and understand I just blew it. That doesn't make me a bad person. That doesn't make me unforgivable. That makes me human. And I am willing to forgive others and have compassion for them. And so I'm going to give myself that same gift, understanding that I don't need to be perfect. Now, we have talked so many times about this perfectionism being an issue that gets in the way because it's very self-defeating. So there are many layers to this process of recovering from the disease of obesity. It is so much more complicated than taking a GLP-1 shot, so much more complicated than having bariatric surgery, so much more complicated than going on a liquid diet, so much more complicated than any kind of weight loss method in and of itself. There is no easy way out. There is no easy way out because the truth of the matter is that maintaining weight loss requires consistent effort, not perfection, because you're going to fall off that wagon, you're going to derail, but getting back on track, which includes having compassion for yourself, not expecting yourself to be perfect. So developing and building the skill of resilience, it's like developing a muscle. You've got to use it. You've got to appreciate it. You've got to see, oh, I can get on that body comp machine and see that I've gained muscle. You've got to have a mental body comp machine that says, you know what? Instead of giving in and having a pity party, I said, okay, I blew it yesterday. Today I'm back on track. Today I'm doing the gotta do ums. Today I'm following through with my goals because I am motivated and I'm going to keep being motivated to get to my healthy goals of living a healthy life and doing the things I want to do at a weight that's healthy for my body, not some ridiculous goal weight that has no bearing on anything. So, building resilience is about developing coping skills. What do we say about emotional eating? What do we need? We need to develop coping skills for dealing with the emotions rather than eating. What do we say about stress eating? We need to develop coping skills to deal with the stress. It's all kind of the same thing packaged in a different box with a different bow. But in all of the boxes, the truth comes down to the same thing. We have to be willing to work on these other issues that are not related to what you eat and prepping your meals. And yes, you have to do the behavioral gotta do's, but there is so much more to it. There is so much more to it. And all of the skills in bariatric care are leading you toward finding these coping skills, learning to change the negative thinking, becoming more positive, adapting more positive, building these resiliency. So we have to develop the coping mechanisms. We have to change our ability or our willingness to be more positive about the challenges instead of bitching and moaning. I bought a shirt, I've shared it with you before, and I wear it when we go camping. Welcome to camp, quit your bitching. So when the grandkids are complaining it's too hot or it's too cold or it's too this or I'm wet or the sand or the what, quit your bitching. We have to quit our bitching and look at how can I deal with this? Yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's frustrating. Acknowledge the frustration, but what are you going to do about it? How am I going to cope? What is the coping skill I'm going to apply here? How can I change my negative thinking about this so that I can adapt and keep moving toward my goals? So, this skill of developing resiliency is about I'm going to keep moving toward my goals regardless of the setbacks. I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to challenge my thinking. I'm going to look for the positive. I'm going to look for how I can learn from this setback. And I'm going to keep moving forward. Resilient people definitely have pain and suffering. If things go badly, if you lose your job, if you lose a contract, if you are stricken with the flu or an illness or some family member gets sick or somebody gets stranded and they can't make their flight, there's frustration, there's pain, there's suffering, there's agonizing, there's irritability. All of those things are still going to happen whether you have resiliency or not. So being resilient doesn't mean, oh, you just kind of go along joyfully, merrily rolling along. It means I accept that, well, this really sucks. Now what I'm going to do about it. And it's funny because I think about these things. And if I'm traveling with a friend of mine, something comes up, I behave like a champ. Right? I'm like, well, this sucks. So what are we going to do about it? Sometimes I do that with my husband. Other times I become a big old baby and I'm grumpy and I'm pouty and I'm really inappropriate and it makes me unhappy with my behavior. And so then I always have to end up apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, I behaved like a baby and I wish I had done this and such, meaning I'm capable of behaving regardless of who I'm with. And you probably are too. So put your big kid panties on and say, this really sucks. I hate that my flight was canceled. Everybody else's flight was canceled. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to bitch and moan about it. And then I'm going to figure out what my next plan of action is. Oh gosh, I hate that I gave in to the temptation of whatever the food was. And so I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to regroup. And then I'm going to say, all right, how am I going to pick myself up and be resilient and bounce back and get right back on my path? Be motivated, continue to move toward my goals. So it's not about not having the feelings or the pain, the suffering, but also having the confidence that, you know what? Here we go again. And you might have to overcome your frustration with yourself in regard to self-sabotaging behavior 1,000 times. Or you might have to pivot 25 times a day because it's just not your day. But having the confidence to say, all right, this sucks. My washer, you're a bad country music song. Your washer quit, your dryer quit, your dog hates you, your mother-in-law hates you and your partner just left. It's like a bad country music song, right? So that may all happen in one day. But you go, you know what? after I'm done being sad about it and angry about it and hurt about it and ticked off about it, I'm going to say, I've overcome a lot in my life and I'm going to overcome this too. I'm going to bounce back and let's get started. And then learning from those experiences. So there's some things that you can do, so some factors that appear to make a person more resilient. And it's almost comical what these are. And I'll tell you the reason I say that. It's like, okay, if you want to be a more resilient person, you want to have more optimism. Well, no, Sherlock. If I want to have more resiliency, I need to be more positive. Whoa, don't need a PhD for that one. It also says you got to have more of a positive attitude. Again, seriously? Yes, I'm being sarcastic. So again, here's what the psychologists say. Here's what makes a person more resilient. Positive attitude. Okay, back to we got to work on that. Optimism, which is kind of a positive attitude or looking for the positive, the ability to regulate emotions. In other words, I don't come undone all over you. I don't get frustrated and take it out on you. I don't blame you that my flight got canceled. I don't make it your fault that my battery died. When in the past, seriously, oh, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you, oh my God, I'm so ashamed and embarrassed of my behavior. So many, many years ago, I was driving my car, which conked out on me on the side of the road. I called my husband and I'm like blaming him. I'm like, if you had the car checked or what, it wasn't his fault. But that's who I was at that time. I was blaming. I was going to make it all his fault. I was taking my anger and my frustration out on him. That's not a resilient person. A resilient person might call her husband and say, I'm really frustrated. The car just conked out. I know it's not your fault. Is there anything you can do to help me in this situation? I'm stranded on the side of the highway. So, again, the attitude, the optimism, ability to regulate your emotions means behave yourself. Don't take it out on anybody else because you're having a moment. And the ability, I love this one, to see failure as a form of helpful feedback. Are you able to do that? Are you willing to do that? Because I know you're able. You can say, okay, what went wrong here? Why did I give in to the food? Did I go into the break room when I knew all that stuff was in there? What could I do differently in the future? Or did I not eat before, my protein before I came to the family reunion? And then I decided to linger at the food table instead of go out and mingle with my family members. Is that what happened here? What can I do differently to prevent this from happening again? So we're going to go over some of this stuff, right? So clearly, optimism helps to blunt, as they say in this article, blunt the impact of stress on the mind and body. So something stressful happens and my car gives out on the side of the road and I'm angry and I want to blame my husband and I want him to automatically appear on the scene and fix it for me. That's not very optimistic. And that stress is going to have an effect on my mind and in my body. And those emotions could lead me to self-sabotaging behaviors to eat or whatever unhealthy behavior is my coping mechanism. But optimism would say, okay, this is a pain in the butt, right? We still have the feelings. I'm angry about it. I'm frustrated. I'm going to be late. But I know it's going to be taken care of. I just got to take the steps to get it taken care of. So thinking about it, looking at the things that might have gone wrong are not going to help. But saying, what can I do to make this right? How can I pivot to make this better? How can I have compassion on myself? Of course, I'm frustrated. Of course, I'm angry. Of course, I'm irritable. That's human. But I'm compassionate because I didn't take that out on anybody. I didn't eat about it. And now I'm going to move toward getting on with making these things, making a plan to get this stressor taken care of. So we want to stay calm. We want to stay rational because remember, if our emotions get huge, our logic diminishes. So when we're in a situation we're highly emotionally charged, our logic is kind of in the basement. So when we get overly worked up emotionally, we want to draw on that logic, and that will help us not to react so emotionally or give into unhealthy thinking or unhealthy behaviors based on emotion alone. So we want to balance the logic and the emotion so that the emotion doesn't lead us to unhealthy behaviors. So the car conked out, I'm mad, blah, blah, blah. I can either take it out on my husband, or I can talk to him calmly and rationally and make a plan to get it fixed. So working to stay calm, you might have an initial freak out, but then get yourself back together. So other researchers and other studies show that there could be some people are born to be more resilient than other people, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn to be resilient. We all have the ability to learn to be resilient. Some people may just by nature, kind of, nature and nurture, they may be born with a more optimistic attitude about life. They may be born with, and what can I do to fix this? It's like some people are born to jump in when there's a crisis and some people pull away. But you can learn to be a person who says, what am I going to do about this, as opposed to the reacting thing. But remember, a lot of this is learned behavior. If you had a parent or caregiver who threw fits, stomped and blamed the other people, that is going to be something you are more inclined to do, regardless of whether you were born with more resiliency or not. So learning to be resilient, to bounce back in the face of stress, can be learned. And if you grew up with that temper tantrum parent, then the first thing to do is to learn to be emotionally regulated. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Feel the emotions, work through them, make a plan, stay true to your goals. So catastrophizing isn't going to help. You got to work through the negativity. And some of it, like I said, some of it is born into you, some of it is learned. All right. So also, looking at failure and learning from it is one of the ways you can build resiliency, because you can look at the situation and figure out where you went wrong. We already talked about that. Now, I'm going to share with you some tips that I got from several of these articles on building resiliency. Nothing on this list is anything you have not heard before on the Barry Aftercare podcast. All of this stuff, like I said, it kind of falls into a different box. We can call it resiliency. We can put it in the box of positive thinking. We can put it in the box of optimism. We can put it in the box of self-sabotaging behaviors. We can put these same things into a lot of different boxes, but the bottom line is they all take effort on a consistent basis to overcome. So, surprising that the number one thing on the list is change your negative thinking. And watch your interpretations. Ooh, let me tell you, people's interpretations of situations get them into a lot of trouble. I was talking to a guy today and he was like, and I know my neighbor was doing this intentionally to get me. I'm like, wow, talk about ascribing an interpretation that may or may not be the case. But we all do this. The most common one I hear is, well, they're just doing this because they're jealous. We are ascribing or determining the reason somebody's doing something. You don't like it when somebody does that to you, right? I don't like it when somebody does that to me. Don't tell me what I'm thinking or where I came from or what, how I got to this conclusion. Don't do it to anybody else either. So work on reframing your own negative thoughts. Watch interpreting. If you catch yourself or if you hear somebody else interpreting, call them out on it. It's like, wait a minute. You don't know that for sure. And remember, you don't like it when somebody does that to you. So be more realistic. Change the negative thoughts into what's more realistic here. How can I address this more positively? That's one of the things you do to build resiliency. Reframe the negative thoughts. Develop coping skills. Hello. Develop coping skills. We've been talking about this forever. So much of changing your behavior regarding food is developing coping skills, because research will tell us also that stress is the number one cause of regain. It's the number one cause of going back to unhealthy habits and behaviors. We have stress in our life, friends, so we need to learn healthy coping skills for it. And we've got episodes on that too. But what I'm talking about here, when we talk about skills, coping skills for stress and emotional disruption and life that gets in the way, calming yourself with breathing, taking a few minutes to pause, a pause between, what's going on and your action, calm, rational thinking. Maybe your coping mechanism is calling a friend, journaling, jotting down how you're feeling. That's what I'm talking about, developing coping skills. Identify solutions. Okay, here are my options when my car broke down. I can stomp my feet on the side of the road and sit down and cry about it. I can sit in the car and hope it'll start. I can call AAA. I can call the police. I can walk to the nearest gas station. I can call my spouse. These are my options. So look at the solutions instead of focusing on the problem. What are my options? And then pick something and take those positive steps toward resolving it. Again, set realistic goals. We've heard about this over and over again. If your goals are too big, you're going to end up failing. That's going to send you into self-spiral. So to develop resilience, set goals you can meet so you can go, yay me. Celebrate small victories. Absolutely essential. We're not very good at that. So when you follow through with 4 gotta do's that day, celebrate that. When you say, I didn't go into the break room when they were having the birthday celebration, be proud of yourself. Give yourself congratulations. Or you went in and you stuck to your food plan. Whatever it happens to be, celebrate those victories. I got out and one of the ladies in Berry Aftercare said, you know what? I walked partway around the lake, and then later said I walked all the way around the lake. Celebrate those and let people celebrate with you. All right, be flexible when you learn to accept the struggles that are part of life. It's not a personal injustice. That's where that victim mentality comes in. We all have issues that interrupt our lives, not just you. So recognize that instead of saying, why me? A great attitude is, why not me? Prioritize self-care. Hello, have we heard this before? This is how you develop resiliency. If you get enough sleep, you eat well, and you move, you're much more resilient because your mental capacities are sharper and your attitude is better. Practice stress management. We've talked about that. Cultivate a mindset of learning. All right, again, what happened that I went off the rails? What can I learn from it? I love this. Maintain a sense of humor. Well, there I go again. I have this mantra about myself, and it's the first half of it says, it's hard to be me. And I promise you, it is hard to be me. I don't know if it's ADD or if I just am a bumbling goober a lot of the time. But the second half of my sentence is, but it's always so very entertaining. So take yourself less seriously. It is hard to be me. I can get myself in a mess in a hurry, but it's always so entertaining. So make light of situations. Find joy, because happiness, laughter, joy dissolves tension. Maintain close relationships. You better have that community. Are you participating actively in the Berry Aftercare community or whatever communities you're a part of? Are you participating in them? The next way to develop uh, resiliency is to think about your goals, think about your values, and consistently move toward those. If I fall off the rails, but I get back up, that's moving me closer to what's meaningful. I call these your meaningful matters. What's meaningful to me? What matters to me? What actions do I have to take to stay in line with that? Release regret. If something bad happens or if you behave badly, apologize, release the regret. Oh my God, I took it out on my kid. Oh my gosh. Kid, I'm sorry. I yelled at you. None of this was your fault. You didn't deserve it, Please, I hope you can accept my apology and then move on. Don't dwell in it and have gratitude. Move more. Exercise is a great way to become more resilient. And there's a lot of research on that. We become more resilient because self-care and feeling good about ourselves leads to increased motivation and dealing with things better. So there's a lot of steps, and I will make a worksheet and I will attach it I'll put a link to it on the show notes because these are great tips and tools. So we want to develop resiliency. In other words, we want to learn to bounce back from adversity without falling too far off the rails. And if we do fall off the rails, okay, then pick ourselves up as soon as possible and not beat ourselves up. The other way that we want to get away from self-defeating behaviors, self-defeating attitudes, the victim mentality. We've got develop resiliency and then develop, there's a word for you, self-efficacy. So when you face a challenging situation, do you have confidence that you're going to be able to take the situation, do whatever it takes to make it work out, to succeed, to get through it? Or do you doubt? I don't know. I don't know if I can. Now, it's normal to doubt some things that you don't have any experience or expertise in. But when it comes to things in your weight loss journey, like, can I deal with this emotional situation without eating? I think I can because I've done it before. So I've got some experience to say that there are times when I have. Yeah, there are times when I haven't as well. But I have confidence that I can do this. So when you're facing these challenging situations in your weight loss journey and also outside of them, where's your confidence level? Do you believe that you can do it? And this answer about having the confidence or the belief is what we're talking about when we're talking about self-efficacy. Self-efficacy, the belief that we can, even if we don't necessarily know how, but the belief that we can learn how, or we can figure it out, or we can ask people for help, and then we can. That I always talk about the little engine that could when I talk about self-efficacy. I may never have done this before, but I know I can ask somebody how to do it. That's self-efficacy. I can learn. I can challenge myself. I can watch a YouTube video. I can explore. I can see how other people in my bariatric group are doing this. I can look at their skills and their successes. And I think I can do that. So that's what self-efficacy is. I think I can. I think I can. It's the ability to make something happen and do it for yourself. That can be tough, right? We want people to do things for us. And we can have people help us, but ultimately, self-efficacy is the ability to move through difficult situations on our own, to count on ourselves to get past, the family get together, the holiday dinners, the vacation without going off the rails completely with food, the going to the gym, the reaching out to somebody in support group, the asking the questions that I need to ask about my nutrition to keep moving toward my goals. It's I'm going to do this for me. I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to keep moving toward my goals. And it's important to remember that this whole business about self-efficacy doesn't mean that I've got the skills to do it. It just means I believe I can learn the skills or find out the skills or ask somebody to help me get this done. So this is something that is so very learnable and so, so very doable. And research, this goes right back to this victim mentality. Here's what research says. Overcoming a self-defeating attitude, holding on to a victim mentality, and avoiding self-sabotaging behaviors requires self-efficacy. I'm going to read that again because I took it right out of an article. Researchers let us know that, quote, overcoming a self-defeating attitude, Holding on to a victim mentality and avoiding self-sabotaging behaviors requires self-efficacy. So, friends, if you engage in negative thinking, if you engage in this victim mentality, if you engage in self-defeating behaviors, then you're going to need to, according to research, learn this business of self-efficacy, believing I can do this, believing I can learn the skills and continue to move toward my goals and that I can make my dreams come true. All right, so we got to work on this. And that self-efficacy includes your beliefs and your ability to succeed and accomplish a particular task or goal. So I believe I can do that. Sure, I'm going to need help. I'm going to need help in learning how to meal prep. I'm going to need help in learning how to Zumba dance. I'm going to need help in learning how to figure out how many macros are in this. And I'm going to need help figuring out how many macros I need of protein and fat and carbs. I'm going to need help, but I can get there. I can get there. I'm going to ask for the help that I need if I don't have the skills myself. Because this business of self-efficacy, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, plays a huge role in, wait for it, motivation. I want it, but I just don't have the motivation. I start off strong, but I lose my motivation. Self-efficacy, believing that you can, plays a huge role in motivation. So if you want to continue strong, not just start strong and end weak, but continue in following through with the gotta do's, you've got to have this I believe I can, I think I can, I think I can, working on your behalf. You also have to know that this self-efficacy has a huge bearing on your behavior and your personal accomplishments. So it's something that's really important to learn, and we can definitely learn this. Here's another quote from a research article. A victim mentality is inherently incompatible with the belief that you can get things done. So if you're all victimy, which we talked about last week, if you've got that victim attitude going on, oh, woe is me and the whole world's pooping on me, and why is everybody always picking on me? If you're living there, guess what? That's incompatible with the belief that you can get things done. So it's not likely that people who are stuck stewing in their brew of self-pity are going to be very successful. It's incompatible. So the self-efficacy, again, you can learn it. We have to get away from that negativity, that of the self-defeating behaviors, the self-defeating beliefs, and definitely away from that victim mentality. Another researcher says self-efficacy is essential for overcoming a victim mindset. Ooh. So that, again, proof that that victim thing is not going to get you where you want to be. Research also indicates that people high in, I think I can, take better care of themselves. When I think I can do something, it makes sense that I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do the things that I know are going to lead me to what I say I want. So if I say I want a healthier weight, if I say I want to keep the weight off, and if I believe that I can, it follows that I'm going to be treating myself better. All right. People with self-efficacy are not controlled by circumstances. So it doesn't matter if it's a family dinner, a cruise, a vacation, a work party, a holiday party. It doesn't matter. The circumstance is not going to dictate how well I stay on track with what I say I want, because I believe I can do it. I'm going into each situation prepared. I'm going into the holiday event. I'm going into the food fest. I'm going into whatever it is with the belief that I can do well. That is huge. A circumstance is not going to get the best of me. People with good self-efficacy see setbacks as challenges. I can overcome this. I can cope with hard things. They learn from the failure and have a greater sense of motivation and persistence. Now, what is it that leads us to sustained weight loss. It's maintaining that motivation and remaining persistent. So the more we can increase our self-efficacy, the more motivated we will stay. So if you struggle to maintain your motivation, developing your self-efficacy and your resiliency gives you positive outlook on your successes. And if you're celebrating them along the way, you're motivated to keep moving. So all this positive begets more positive, just like negative begets negative. And you got to choose which hamster wheel you want to get on. All right. Albert Bandura, he's a psychologist back in the day. He's the one that developed all this information about self-efficacy. And he says there's these different pillars. And this is how you can learn to improve your self-efficacy. So listen carefully. And again, remember, I said you don't necessarily have to have the skill to do something. You have to have the belief that you can learn the skill. So I'm not a great cook, but I can read a cookbook. I can read a recipe. Therefore, I think I can cook. Naturally, in and of itself, I'm not one who understands the science between mixing and matching flavors and but I can read and I can follow a recipe. Therefore, I have efficacy that I can make a meal and it's going to be at least presentable. So here's how we learn. Here's how we develop self-efficacy. One way is through mastery experiences. This means, things we learn. Obstacles we've overcome, goals we've achieved. So I've accomplished this. Maybe you've lost weight in the past. That's a mastery experience. Maybe you've stuck with exercise in the past. That's a mastery experience. You've accomplished it, so you know you're capable of it. So if you've done it, this is why it's so important and why it helps us maintain motivation. I've done it before. I know I can do it again. If you've done it, you know you can do it. And knowing you can do it is what self-efficacy is. So knowing you can do it isn't the only piece that we need, but it's a very good piece because you're like, I've done it before, I can do it again. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's why we celebrate these accomplishments. Even if you think they're really, really small, it's incredibly important because it builds our confidence. Look what I did. I went to the gym 4 days this week. That was my goal. So mastery experiences, when we say the past is the best indicator of future behavior, well, if you've indicated that you can do this, you've got that skill. You know that you can do this. Yeah, maybe you quit doing it, but you know you can do it. So let's get back on and work toward it again and again and again because you've got confidence. You feel competent in your ability to walk around that lake. You did it. Now you know you can do it. So maybe you can do it a second time. And as we do things, we get the knowledge, I can do it. We develop our confidence. We have to choose to think about our wins, not our losses. So I can think about how many times I lost weight and gained it back. Or I can say, these are the things that I did do to lose the weight, and I can do them again. And I can do them again. Today, I can do it again. Today, I can do it again. And if we keep that positive attitude about I can do it again just for today, it's a positive thing, right? All right. So mastery experiences are one way to develop your self-efficacy. Here's another repeat. Your emotional and psychological state is critical in developing self-efficacy. What's going on in your brain? Those thoughts. I think I can, or why bother? Those emotions. I'm so over it. Or, yeah, this is tough, but I've got it. I'm going to do this. I'm not happy about it, but I'm choosing to do it. That's what's going on in your brain. The emotional, the psychological. When it comes to emotional influences, your mood and outlook may affect how you approach a challenge. So if you've got a positive attitude, it's going to increase your self-efficacy. So if you're just having a bad day and you got up on the wrong side of the bed and you're grumpy, go back to bed. Get up tomorrow and use that positive attitude and work toward your goal. Having a negative attitude is going to diminish your outlook, your attitude. So this whole attitude thing, cannot stress it enough. It is critical. Get yourself in check with your attitude. Stinking thinking results in no good results. All right, another way we can learn to develop self-efficacy, especially if we don't think we have a skill, but we think we could do it if we knew how, is called social modeling. So I look at other people and see how they're doing it. You learn by watching. And this one requires accepting help from other people, which is a problem for a lot of people. So where's your willingness at? In this case, we're looking for, how did you get yourself to exercise? How did you get yourself, doing that meal planning? It's really tough with all the time constraints I seem to have. How did you how did you get through that holiday party without falling off the rails? What'd you do for your vacation? How did you get through your vacation while keeping up with your exercise and, all that protein? So learning from other people, that's why these bariatric communities like bariatric care are so critically important, because the people in the group are going through the same thing you are. And if they've accomplished something, they can teach you how to do it. You can watch, you can listen, you can learn, which will help you go, oh, you know what? I can do that too. Thanks for the tip. Another way we increase, there's two more, our self-efficacy. One is verbal persuasion, the other one is social persuasion. So another thing is the verbal persuasion is getting encouragement, getting people who believe in you to say, you know what? You're doing a good job. You know what? I'm really proud of you. You know what? I can see how hard you're working toward that. This kind of verbal persuasion helps us think, well, I must be doing a pretty good job. I feel good about it too. So if you don't have people, that's why we say stick with the winners. The winners are the ones who are going to encourage you, not blow smoke up your butt, not telling you you're doing a good job if you're not, but really providing you honest feedback about the things you're doing well on. That increases your I think I can, I think I can. And then the last one is social persuasion. It's the idea that your environment affects you. The environment includes other people who believe in you, other people who have confidence in you, other people who can help you overcome doubt and fear. So it's their presence, their emotional support, their physical support, maybe going on a 5K together, maybe being in the support group together, having that like-mindedness and that social support and having people around you who are encouraging one another, hugely effective in developing your self-efficacy. Because maybe you think, I can't do this 5K on my own, but if 2 or 3 or 4 other people go with me, and even if I don't make it, I'm making it farther than I would have. And so you develop your ability to think, I can, because other people are there with you and for you. And that's why these groups are so, so, so critical. So this level of self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to do it, affects how you think, how you feel, how you act. Low self-efficacy, no surprise, is linked to helplessness, victim, anxiety, depression, self-sabotage. All right. So whether it's good or not right now, your level of self-efficacy, you can increase it. And here are some ways. You practice. You know what? I'm going to practice participating in a yoga class or a Pilates class or a kickboxing class online. Nobody has to see me. I'm just going to do it. The more you practice something, the better you get at doing it. I'm going to practice playing the piano. I'm going to practice protein first. I'm going to practice eating every 4 or 5 hours. Practicing. Another way to develop your self-efficacy is trying new things. It might not be something you want to do all the time, but if you try something and you're like, wow, I had no idea I could draw. I have a friend, this is a true story. She retired from her job of 30 years, whatever. And she's like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be bored. She decided she'd give painting a whirl. Holy moly, she is now making more money painting and selling her paintings than she did at her full-time job. She didn't even know she could do it. So try some things. Try an acting class. Try cooking a healthy recipe. Try swimming. Try ice skated the other day. It was so much fun. I hadn't ice skated in over 30 years. Just try some things. So things you might not think you might be good at, some you might be like, I'm never doing that again. But trying new things increases your range of skill. It gives you confidence. It gives you the willingness to try new things. And that develops your, I think you can do this. Look for role models. Find people in the bariatric community who are doing what you want to be doing. Hang out with them. Ask them the questions. Follow in their footsteps. Do what they're doing. Ask them how they are doing that. So having a few good role models or sponsors or leaders to follow can really help you. And then having that team. You've got to have that support team. Build your support team. If you're in a group, get a little more active. Challenge yourself to ask for help. Challenge yourself to post something. Challenge yourself to volunteer, to do something in the group. And then getting feedback can help too. Having a positive attitude and then having some successes. And you do have successes. That's why on this form that I made that is in the Berry Aftercare journal that you can buy online that I created. Part of it is, what did I do well today? Because we look at our successes, even if they're really small, then pick another small change, pick another small change. So focus on your past and current successes and use visualization. Imagine yourself walking the 5K. Imagine yourself meal prepping. Imagine yourself walking out of the break room to eat your protein. Imagine yourself at the holiday event eating the protein and talking to the people instead of hanging around. Visualize. It increases your self-efficacy. And accept self-doubt. It's like, of course, you may have an initial, I don't know about that. But then say, okay, of course I feel this. And one of the biggest things I learned in treatment many, many years ago was feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do the thing anyway. Great way to live your life. And then work on your happiness. So that's a lot for today. Re-listen. I'll make a handout, read some of these articles, go to the post, the show notes, look at some of these articles. But basically, here's what I want you to take home with you. Maintaining weight loss requires skills that you got to learn and you've got to practice. You've got to have the willingness to do it, and you've got to put forth the effort every day. Because as we know, Mel Robbins says, nobody's coming. Nobody can do this for you, but you can't do it alone. Develop the skills of self-resiliency and the skill of self-efficacy. And here's one thing you can do, one little take-home exercise. Make a list of your successes, past and present, and post it where you can see it. This is your reminder that you can do this. You are in charge. You have done this. You are not a victim. This is a can-do attitude reminder. You are resilient. You do have self-efficacy, and we can build these muscles and practice these muscles and strengthen these muscles so that we can overcome self-sabotaging behavior. We can overcome the victim mentality. We can overcome self-sabotage and stinking thinking. So make yourself that list. Post it where you can see it. Past and present successes in all areas of your life. And remember, you can if you think you can. Thank you for taking your time. Please encourage others to listen to this. This is not about weight or food. This is about life. So encourage those you love to listen to this and learn from this. And I will see you next time. Remember, your health, your responsibility this day and every day. See you next time. Bye.